Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett, and welcome to this demo and review of the brand new Fender 68 Custom Vibro Champ Reverb amplifier. This is a little 5-watt amp. I'm really excited to bring this amp to you. This is a great amp that I've been looking forward to trying out. So we're going to dive right in with a tone here that I find particularly inspiring, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit and put it through its paces. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Follow the link below where you can listen to some music. I hope you enjoy. All right, just a reminder before we get going, don't just hit the like button, you smash that like button. Right? That's what people are talking about now. It's not just this like aggressive thing, like you smash it, smash the like button. I'm a little like, hey, okay, this sun's getting real low there, big guy. I do want to mention this is a sponsored demo from Fender. This is a demo that we're doing collaboratively. I am, again, really excited to get my hands on this amplifier. Now, I did reach out to Fender to collaborate on this amplifier because I wanted to get my hands on it, so keep that in mind. This is a sponsored demo, however, all the opinions I'm stating are entirely of my own volition. Disclaimers done, let's talk tone. This is the Fender 68 Custom Vibro Champ Reverb amplifier. So, if you're not familiar with the 68 Custom series, this is a great, relatively new series from Fender. Traditionally, the blackface Fender amps have been the more sought after when it comes to these circuits. They changed to silverface in the late 60s, and that was after the CBS corporate buyout, and that was at a time when quality of production was starting to diminish. However, a lot of those silverface amplifiers are objectively really awesome. They may not be as sought after. In fact, you still frequently see a lot of actual vintage ones on the used market, but they're really still great amplifiers and a lot of great tones. And what Fender started to do with the 68 Custom series was they went with a particular era that had the unique drip edge and decided to do something slightly different than a reissue. It's kind of a tribute, and they gave it some modern appointments, messed with the circuit a little bit to kind of add in some different voicings, did things like on some of the the 2-channel amps, you get the reverb and the tremolo on both channels as opposed to just one, which was more the traditional setup. Some of them had like a bassman voiced channel and then the regular voice channel and different things with a negative feedback to get more gain at reasonable volumes. All in all, a great series of amplifiers. I really haven't played one that I've been disappointed with yet. Now, this is a new one, and this is based on the Vibro Champ. And the Vibro Champ was the evolution of the little Fender practice or student amps. They started out as kind of like student amps, but became incredibly popular and prolific in the recording studio because you could get natural overdriven tones at very reasonable volumes, which particularly in the 1960s and 70s was really sought after. In fact, one of my favorite guitar players of all time, Mr. Eric Clapton, was very famously known for using Champ amplifiers in the studio, and that's where many of the classic tones come from. So this is the 68 custom treatment to the classic Vibro Champ. Now there are a few notable differences. Obviously reverb, now that's in the title. Now the old Vibro Champs would have had tremolo, but they would not have had reverb. The other thing, and this is a big one, is that the old Vibro Champs had 8-inch speakers, whereas this one Fender decided to go with a 10-inch speaker to give you a little bit more versatility. Now the old amps, really cool, and so I'm not saying this in a disparaging way, but an 8-inch speaker, it sounds small. Now it has a great sound and a notable sound, however, it is somewhat limited and they can sound kind of small and boxy. And boosting up to the 10-inch speaker really gives you more dimension to play with. Now it's a 6V6 amp. It still has tube-driven tremolo, which I'm really excited about. That was kind of a feature that I wasn't actually expecting. Came with a cover, which was great. Did not come with a foot switch, which is fine, but it does take the optional Fender 2-button foot switch for the reverb and the tremolo. Now the reverb, this surprised me, is digital. It's not a spring reverb. It is a digital hall reverb. And this is a good example of a place where you might need to separate your expectations from reality, because it's a really nice sounding reverb. I actually love the tone of this reverb. However, this series of amplifiers, not the Champs, but the Blackface and Silverface amps, are known as some of the best reverb amps ever to exist. In fact, I've got a Super Reverb sitting right next to me here. The Super Reverb to me is the reverb that all other reverbs are measured up against. So at first when I looked at it, I thought, okay, digital reverb? But then I thought, let's play it and listen to it. And then when I played it and listened to it, it's a really nice sounding reverb. It's a lush, rich reverb, has a little bit more shimmer. And the other thing is that spring isn't necessarily always better. The Super sitting next to me, notwithstanding. But I have played amplifiers that have real spring reverb tanks where the reverb sounds cheap and raspy and it doesn't necessarily work. So just keep in mind that spring is not necessarily better, and I wouldn't necessarily say that digital is worse. There are a lot of people who are very anti-digital reverb. Maybe 5 to 10 years ago I would have mostly agreed, but nowadays the technology has come so far that digital reverbs can sound incredibly realistic, and I like the sound of this reverb a lot. It seems to suit the amplifier well, it works well. That being said, if you are looking for a Fender to give you the classic Fender spring reverb tone, this is not it. This does not have the actual spring reverb. It has this digital hall reverb. Now this is a pretty quiet amp. It's 5 watts. It's a small amp, and even with a 10-inch speaker, this is not a massively brash amplifier, even when you get it up fully cranked, which we are going to do in a little bit. It's not blowing the walls off. Now that's great for recording, might not be as great for gigging. Now I don't want to say that it's not a giggable amp, because if you're putting a microphone in front of it, then it absolutely is. If you're in a situation where you don't know if you'll be able to be mic'd, then you're going to want to go with something that gives you more power and more volume, because this one is a relatively quiet amp. Great for bedroom use, great for home use, and loads of things you can do with this amplifier recording, which we're going to talk about in a second here. But just keep in mind that for gigging purposes, if you're not going to mic it, then it has to be a pretty small, pretty intimate kind of gigging situation in order for you to be heard. Now the flip side of that is that if you are miking it, you might find yourself in a situation where you can actually get cranked amp tones at a gig, in a usable way. So if you're someone who's into that and you're sure you're going to be mic'd, then it could be a really cool option for gigging. So we're going to dive back with some tones here, and I want to show you a bunch of different tones. Now, that tone you heard at the beginning, one of the things that I was doing was actually cranking the bass. I had the bass at 10, I had the treble way down at 3, and then I was using a slow tremolo and then some reverb, a generous portion of reverb. Really rich tone, and the reason I wanted to do that with the treble turned down and the bass turned up is to show you how big you can make this amplifier sound, right? If you didn't see what I was playing, you might be more inclined to think that that was a Princeton or even something in more like in the deluxe range. Not necessarily a deluxe, but something of that size. The bass knob and the 10-inch speaker really give you a load of options for tone shaping, and again, it can give you the classic Vibro Champ tone, but it can also sound much bigger. So that was the reason I wanted to start with that. So what I would say is with the bass knob is to think of the bass knob as kind of like a size shaping tool. If you turn the bass up, it makes it sound like a bigger amplifier. If you turn the bass back, it makes it sound more like the classic small box amplifier. But it didn't get muddy or flubby when I turned the bass even all the way up to 10. So that was really cool, and that gives you a lot of tonal flexibility. So now to start off with, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to basic clean tone, knobs at noon. I've got the volume about midway, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with a tube screamer to hear how it takes pedals. So you're going to hear it clean and then hit with a tube screamer. We're going to play that with a Fender Telecaster and then again with this guitar, which is a Fender Stratocaster. So check out this kind of neutral setting, just a real basic idea of what this amp sounds like and how it takes an overdrive pedal. All right, next let's try out the reverb and the tremolo. Again, I want to give you a real clear picture of the reverb. It's a really nice reverb. So unless you're specifically looking for a Fender spring sound, don't let the digital reverb deter you because it's a great sounding reverb. So now I'm going to plug in a Gretsch 6120, going to turn the reverb all the way up and then turn the tremolo, the intensity all the way up and then the speed up to about 7 to give you a good idea of how the tube driven tremolo sounds. So here are the reverb and the tremolo. The tremolo is so rich, especially being tube driven, and then with the reverb being a little bit different, more like a hall reverb, you can get into some cool, expressive kind of ambient tones. So here it is again with the Gretsch, and I'm going to play kind of an expressive ambient tone with heavier reverb and a slow tremolo just to add kind of a waviness to it. Now this is a single channel amplifier, however it does have 2 inputs, which I absolutely love. And you might say, geez, even on a 5-watt amp, why do you need 2 inputs? The second input is the low gain input. One of the things that I really like about the low gain input is when you go into the low gain input, you can turn the amp up louder to get the power tubes warmed up. But then you're still not in breakup territory. So it gives you a really full, rich, clean tone, but without getting distorted. But, you know, sometimes when you play a clean tone, it can sound a little anemic almost. It just sounds a little, doesn't have quite enough oomph to it, especially if there's a lot else going on in the song in either the band or the recording. So if you do this, it gives you just kind of more presence and more warmth and more push behind it. So check out this. I'm going to plug into the second input and get the volume turned up pretty high, but then the tone is still this really rich, clean tone. So check out how great this sounds for a recording clean tone going into the second input. All right, now we're going to hear this amp fully wide open, going back into the high gain input with the amp volume all the way up. We're going to play it with the Stratocaster and then with the Gretsch to give you a good idea of some different pickup configurations and how awesome this amp sounds when you really drive it. This is not blowing the walls off again. This is actually pretty reasonable volume. It's maybe about rehearsal volume depending on the band that you're in. So this is something that's realistic to be able to use in a home studio to track some actual amp overdrive. Check out how great this sounds. All right, for the last clip, what I want to do is show you kind of a unique way you can get the classic Vibro Champ tone. Now, this is a trick that I've actually done to reasonable success, also even with a Princeton reverb, and it works beautifully with this amplifier. That's to turn it all the way up and then turn the EQ and the reverb all the way off, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but what it does is it pulls everything back again, especially with the bass cut off. It pulls everything back. With the treble turned all the way down, it kind of simulates the smaller speaker overdriving and compressing. And you'd think it would just sound that, but when you turn it all the way up with the EQ all the way off, and again, the reverb off because the classic Champs did not have reverb, it's just a really cool vintage style recording tone. So for the last tone of the day, we're going to do this vintage style Champ tone with the volume all the way up, the EQ and the reverb all the way off. Folks, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this demo of the Fender Vibro Champ. Let us know if this is one that you've picked up, if it's one that you're thinking of, or if you have another amp in the 68 Custom series. I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Spotify, and we'll see you next time.